Okay, and we are live. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight for another week of the Area Scouts Procast. These live events feature our top advisors, directors, and some special guests that we invite on the show occasionally. And we are live. We are live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. As always, we have our normal Procast hosts, Director of Sports Medicine Performance, Anthony Anzillo, Director of Baseball Operations, Brian Murray, and myself, CEO of Area Scouts. Tonight, we have a special guest, is Todd Blyleven's on the show tonight. Thanks for joining us, Todd. I'm going to let Brian kind of start off the interview, and then Todd and I are going to discuss a little about what Scout Hub and Area Scouts is currently working on together. So I'm going to give you the mic, Brian.
All right. Thank you very much, Lance, and welcome, Todd. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit about what the Scout Hub is and how your company works with athletes, please.
So the Scout Hub is a sports technology company that provides evaluation software to coaches, teams, organizations to help them evaluate their athletes. And it provides the athletes with metrics and analytics to help the athlete develop and track their progress as they pursue their own success. That's probably the best way to describe it. Yeah.
Great. And what are the age groups you usually work with?
Typically, it's been more the elite, kind of high-end middle school to high school athletes right now. But we do have some younger athletes that we're working with down at that, elementary school level as well.
Okay, great. So you played minor league baseball. How did you get your start as a professional ball player?
So when, played in high school, obviously, then got drafted out of high school, ended up going to college, kind of bounced around the college scene. I signed a full-year scholarship opportunity to Cal State Fullerton. The coaches went to Oklahoma. I didn't really care for Oklahoma at the time. Now I'm in Texas, so I like my northern state brethren up there. But my journey was a little different. I think it almost compared to today's athlete, especially all those athletes in the transfer portal where, you're looking for better opportunity. So I ended up getting drafted out of Fresno State and played 7 years in the minor leagues and bounced up and down. I was a journeyman, so I pretty much played all over the country and had an opportunity to kind of live everywhere and play with a lot of different people. But I think when you ask how I got drafted, I was just good enough. Like any player that gets drafted or seen or signed, it comes with a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of, just forward vision on wanting to be the best at what you do in your craft. And I think I look back on it and all the hours you spend in the workout facilities and the running. I was a huge runner. My dad was a big runner, big long distance runner. So, I ran marathons and just everything I could do physically, emotionally, mentally to get myself prepared to play at the higher levels. So I think that's how I got drafted, is because I was good enough, but I put myself there because of my hard work. Yeah.
Good. Now you were drafted twice, correct?
3 times. Yeah.
3 times. All right.
Yeah. Twice.
Third time's the charm.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Lenny DiNardo, who's also with us, actually was drafted twice as well. Once out of high school and then once in college.
Yeah, it was, going through, ended up becoming a major league scout after I got done playing. And had I known what I knew and learned in scouting, if I had known that as a player, I think my path probably would have been a little different, because going into, especially my high school senior year, I had teams coming in wanting to sign me in the top 3 rounds. We wanted first round only, first round money. And I was a kid that didn't really care to go to college. I wanted to sign out of high school. My parents both, were kind of teeter-tottering through. But my dad, he spent 6 months in the minor leagues. I was in the big leagues fairly quick, at 19. And so there wasn't a whole lot of education in terms of what's signable, how to keep yourself on the draft board, how to really play and manipulate the draft a little bit in your favor, but also make sure that you get what you want. And I know I was one of those overpriced kids for where I was really slotted. And had I done it right, I probably would have been signed somewhere in that second, third round and gone off to play after high school. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's a totally different dynamic from scouting to being a player.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a good transition to this. Like, so how was that from becoming, you're a professional ball player to becoming a scout? Was like, how did that transition happen for you? And, what changes did you have to make, or what kind of mindset changes, right? From being the player to now evaluating the player, right?
Yeah, I remember, I ended up going to scout school with the Major League Scouting Bureau in Tucson. And one of the first games we went to was a Chicago White Sox instructional game there in Tucson. And so I'm standing there and there's, a bunch of guys and we're all aspiring scouts. It was a program put on where each major league team sent 2 representatives, whether it was to become a high-end operational manager in scouting or player development. So I'm sitting there and we're watching Greg Norton hit that I played in college with. And I'm standing next to a veteran, salty scout. He's probably, in his 70s, polyester pants, cowboy boots, and he's got his old-fashioned stopwatch. And we're watching Norton hit. And he gets a base hit to the left, and he says, "What'd you see right there?" And I said, "Well, he stayed back on the ball, fastball away, and he drove the ball to left center." And so we're talking about his swing, and he says, "Well, where was his feet? Did you like his approach? What was his approach like?" And I'm like, "Well, okay, I've seen Norton hit 100 times. Yeah, good approach. I'm going back to what I saw before." And he goes, "How about the pitcher? What was the pitcher's mechanics like?" So now I'm like, let me go back 2 pitches because I wasn't watching the pitcher on that particular pitch. Throws slightly across his body, got some good onside run, has a problem commanding the outside part of the plate. And he said, "No, on that pitch, what was that pitch like? Did it have movement, arm side life?" And I'm like, okay. I said, "Well, I think he was slightly across the body." And he goes, "How about the shortstop? Was the shortstop in position to field that ball?" And I'm like, obviously not, because he got a base hit in the hole. And then he goes, "How would you grade the left fielder's arm in the throwback to second base?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I walked away from that game going, I don't know anything about baseball. This is crazy. Although I grew up in it. So it's a totally different perspective when you're literally just not going out to watch a game. You're going out to really, unfortunately, identify flaws. You're looking at, I want to see great players. I want to see greatness. I'm comparing that player to the rest of the world that I'm watching and getting an opportunity to see. But I'm really trying to pick you out and pick out all the flaws you have and then determine whether or not we have it in our system to be able to correct those in a timely manner in order to give you the money that you're looking for. Otherwise, go to college, develop more, get stronger, get better, learn how to play the game more before you step into the pro ranks. So it was a really interesting transition, but man, I had so much fun. I got a chance to sign guys like Troy Tulowitzki, Ian Stewart, Kevin Jepson, a senior signed Steven Andrade that wasn't supposed to be drafted. And I just liked the way his arm moved, and he ended up being a closer with the Angels and the Royals in the big leagues. So Cinderella story, but really cool.
Great. How is the game and the role of scouts in the game right now changed over the past 20 to 30 years in your mind?
Well, it's funny. My dad and we had a conversation about this just 2 days ago, and it's an ongoing conversation. But really, over the last, I I'd say 7 years. If you look back 20 years, I mean, scouts still went out and they evaluated the talent based on, their objective opinion, right? They would look at the mechanics. They would project out based on what they had seen for thousands of players over the course of time. And they'd be able to say, hey, Brian, we see you in high school. You compare to this guy that we saw 10 years ago, 5 years ago. He was a guy that took 2 or 3 years in the minor leagues, same swing, same arm action, whatever that would be. Now, over the last 7 years, and really more focused on the last 2 or 3 years, everything's been heavily on analytics, as we know. And the sensors and the diamond kinetics and blast motions, the pocket radars and, Rapsodo metrics. Now scouts have to not only be objective in their evaluation process and the mechanics, but you also have to be an expert in analytics and be able to understand what that bad exit velocity means to the swing, where they are today, how much room for projection and growth is there. Can that swing be corrected? Can you add launch angle to that swing and still maintain, proper barrel speed enough to project on the home run? So it's totally evolved. And I think, unfortunately, there's been a lot of scouts that have lost their jobs because of that. It's really sad. I'm hoping that baseball can marry the two eventually and get back to where subjective meets objective. There is a place for analytics, but I think there's a lot to be said when you're talking to a veteran scout that has seen, thousands of players across the country, has seen those guys evolve in the minor league systems, knows the heartbeat of that athlete, and can tell you a true story of who that athlete is because they spend so much time with them in the field, than what a metric stat in a single swing, produces in a showcase. So I think it's valuable on both sides. You just have to know, really understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, metrics so heavy nowadays. Seems like they have these thresholds now too. Like, you don't hit the radar gun at this, then it's really hard for you to get anywhere else,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, kids are just trying to light up the gun and hit 95, and you lose your pitchability. A lot of guys can't control the outside part of the plate. It's hopefully the game gets back to being more of a game than it is just going out and performing pitch by pitch.
Okay. Switch it up a little bit here. So as a young child, you were able to socialize with some unbelievably great ball players, right? Obviously your dad was a Hall of Fame pitcher. And you were around people like Willie Stargell, Dave Parker, a lot of these guys, that 79 Pirates World Series team. Is there a specific player from your childhood that you knew that made a big impact in your life?
There were so many great players that I was so blessed to be around. And I took every day. My dad took me to the clubhouse. I didn't take it for granted. I would say, my first hitting lesson was with Willie Stargell, and he was unbelievably amazing. So was Dave Parker. He used to swing on his arms. Kirby Puckett was a great example of a guy that showed up every single day with this smile on his face and just loved to be at the ballpark and loved to put the uniform on and go out and work hard, but still, and then go compete in games, but still have a blast in the clubhouse. Those types of guys, your Ricky Hendersons, your Kirby Pucketts, your Frank Violas, Nolan Ryans. And then there was the guys like my dad that went to the ballpark. He was known for being a prankster, had a blast, but competed. You didn't want to take him out. Seventh inning, managers were afraid to go out and take the ball out of his hand because he would cuss at you, he would bark at you, he would snarl at you like, you better get back in the dugout because it's my game. I loved that era of baseball. And so really, I would say of them all, I really just had the Jim Abbotts, watching Jim Abbott with one arm compete at the major league level and seeing what he got to go through, his daily routine, and get a chance to see that happen. And just that transformation and how he take the glove out, truly amazing. So totally gifted. But yeah, I couldn't probably pinpoint one player. I had a blast every single day being around those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking my childhood too there, man. I mean,
Yeah.
just Kirby Puckett. He looked like he was having so much fun every time he was on the field. He was he was like a big bubbly character, you know?
Yeah.
It was great to watch him.
Oh.
And Jim Abbott, yeah. I mean, when I was a kid and just in awe of how a guy could do that at that level, with the holdbacks that he had, it was just like, oh my God, it's amazing to see that stuff. That's great stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So where can people find out more about what you do with the Scout Hub?
So you're at, just go ahead and go to the website at www.thescouthub.com. So thescouthub.com. And we've got a new product being launched here in the next week. We're really excited about. And then obviously the work we're doing with Area Scouts. It's been a long development process, and we're super excited to be part of that. So, yeah.
Which is a great segue. So I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Baldwin now.
I was already jumping in.
Stuff that.
So it's funny because when we, we're going on our first kind of official year here now, just hitting September. Since we kind of first rolled out, we were in beta for about 90 days, and now we're just coming up on that 12 months. And since then, I would say that one of the largest confusions that we've had with people coming on board is the name and Area Scouts. And that name was developed initially based on having evaluators or scouts in areas all across the country that were helping youth sports and kids in every sport. And because of the name, everyone automatically assimilates that to having scouting reports done on athletes. And we have Scout School 360, which is a full baseball scouting course that Mike Medici has done a phenomenal job on, and our evaluators go through that. But there really isn't a scouting report writing portion of the platform. And Mike Medici does help with people who do reports, but there isn't really a tool that enables our evaluators and our coaches and people that are associated with us to be able to do reports on the kids based on what a scout would look at. And a lot of these kids and parents want that. And so fast forward to today, Todd and I have been talking for probably about 6 months now. We've bounced a bunch of different ideas off each other, and we got off track a few times because he'll get involved in a big project, or I will. And now we're getting close. We have the developers currently working on implementing a scouting report now that will be built into the platform, so that when someone does come on board Area Scouts as an evaluator, they can also do these reports, these scouting reports on their athletes that basically will be housed on the athlete's profile. The athletes can reach out to their evaluators or to a scout on Area Scouts and have that report written, not only in baseball, but we're going to launch this on various different sports that Todd is still currently building out a few of the others. So I wanted you to touch on this a little, Todd, and the different sports and kind of where you see this going with Area Scouts.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just excited to be part of your program, and I've always enjoyed the conversations, and it's fun to be involved with a group that has high energy and high aspirations in helping athletes develop. So, where I see the evaluation process with, the Area Scouts coaches being able to actually evaluate their talent in a scouting fashion, where you can evaluate the mechanical aspect along with add some analytical metrics into an evaluation, say with a hitter or a catcher, infielder, outfielder, pitcher in baseball, I think is really important. And then these athletes will receive these evaluations from the Area Scouts. Where we're going with other sports as well, with football, softball, will be basketball, volleyball, football. I just mentioned football. cricket, and we're going into some other international type sports that I know Area Scouts is interested in getting into as well. So I think the two companies align really well in terms of the software that we're putting out and how we'll be able to add value to what you guys are doing and how you're able to help your registered members and then also your players develop, and then along with you guys and Area Scouts being a part of where we're going and working with organizations and tournament companies as well. So it's a really good marriage, and I'm really happy to kind of walk down that path with you guys.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to finally launching this. I'm going to go and say that I would say that by October 1st, we should have kind of the initial layout to be able to present to our current and new scouts and evaluators that are coming on board the platform. So look forward to launching that. I have about a half a dozen questions here from people watching. I'm just going to do three of them for you, Todd. And then we're going to segment into Brian going through the platform and showing everyone exactly what Area Scouts is and kind of behind the scenes and what parents and athletes see when they come on board. So first, actually from Minnesota, grew up a big Twins fan. What is one of the favorite memories you have as a kid and your dad playing with the Twins?
Well, 87 World Series, of course. The Homer Hankies, and being in that Metrodome and not being able to hear yourself think because it was so loud, all the whistles, the Homer Hankies and everything. But I think too, one of the more memorable occurrences was watching, and I know he wasn't a Twin, but Murray hit a ball with Baltimore. He hit a ball that hit the speaker in right center, which was probably the hardest and furthest ball I've ever seen hit before, and bounced off that speaker. But yeah, Minnesota is such. I was born in Edina, such a great town. I know my dad loved announcing there for so many years. Still part of the Twins family, and it's just always going to be one of my favorite places to travel.
Tim from Oregon, when did you know it was time to stop playing minor league baseball?
For me, when I was in a transition period where I'm seeing my friends graduate from college. They're having steady relationships. They're getting into maybe their second, third year, and in the real world of corporate jobs, or just starting to live life. And, I had bounced around. I'd been up and down, and I had a pretty successful minor league career. I had a lot of fun, but, I was also getting older, and I was looking at myself in the mirror and, where was I going with this? And I just had one of those a-la moments. My last game, I struck out the side, and I walked away, with knowing that was kind of the best I had at that moment. I know I've got a son that's 17, and if he ends up getting an opportunity to play professionally one day, I want him to have an exit strategy, a game plan. I want him to be able to say, you know what, in 4 years' time, I'm going to give this 4 years. And in 4 years' time, I need to have a real assessment of where I am in this. If I get that opportunity to play professionally for 4 years. And if I'm not at a certain level, then it's okay. I gave it everything I had. And I think that's a good timeline for guys. There are guys, there's success stories that have been around the minor leagues for 7 to 10 years. And they finally get that cup of tea. And hats off to those guys for sticking through it. But it's tough. It's tough on, having a family and everything else. So that was my time.
There's a guy, you actually don't even hear about that as much as you used to. The people who hang on as long as they do. But there's a guy, I forget his name. It was either last year or this year that made it, was a rookie at 37 or 38. Did you see him? I forget his name. Did you see that story though? It was pretty amazing. He's been playing all this time, and he got his first at bat at 37 or 38 years old. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, look at the Yankees. Just brought up a guy that is throwing 100 miles an hour, and he's a sub teacher as well. I mean, that's something you didn't hear about either. Was and maybe it's because of COVID and, the minor league shut down, but you got players now that have, part-time, full-time jobs that have started to transition into career roles that are still playing baseball. So they're kind of doing both. And I think COVID, it forced that hand, but good, hats off to those guys trying to set themselves up for that day when baseball is over, because you're not going to play till you're 90 or 70. It's going to end, and you're going to have your whole entire life ahead of you, and you really got to think about that. So, in a good way. Yeah.
Do you currently still scout, and is the Scout Hub currently affiliated with any major league clubs?
So I do still consult with a couple major league teams, more so with, I should say, national scouting coordinators that will ask for my assistance, especially come right before the winter meetings and then before the draft to help them make sure that the players they have are in line. I also consult with a couple agencies that they ask for my assistance on player mechanics and projections. So I enjoy being around that. As far as the Scout Hub being affiliated with Major League Baseball, I would say that we're tied in with Major League Baseball, but we're not officially affiliated. A lot of our employees, especially on the MLB side or the baseball side, were former or current Major League Baseball scouts or coaches, managers. So we're still really connected to Major League Baseball in a sense. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Todd. Like I said, I'm looking forward to getting this rolling with the Scout Hub on our platform, and appreciate your time tonight. You can hang out if you want, but you're more than welcome to log out and go spend the rest of the night with your family. Appreciate the half hour you gave us, and have a great night.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. I appreciate it, and can't wait to get rolling with Area Scouts. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Bye, Brian. See you.
All right, Brian, you have the stage.
All right. Thank you, Lance. So I am going to take everyone through the Area Scouts program. We have a tremendous amount of directors, a tremendous amount of professional athletes, former athletes that are tied into our program for each of the sports that we represent. I do not have time to go through all of them. If you do want to check out the directors and their backgrounds a little bit more, you can go to areascouts.com and look at our team, and we'll go through bios on each one of our directors in the different sports. I will like to touch on that we're still in that little bit of post Olympic time frame here, where we did have 3 of our directors represent their countries in the Olympics, which was fantastic to see, and actually see them, on the screen out there playing, representing their each individual countries. So going forward here, Anthony's going to talk a little bit more about base after my presentation. So I'm going to let him really focus on that portion of our program. I'll just tell you that the base assessment, it's a complete outline of the athlete's overall physical foundation. It's a very good tool for the athletes to understand where they're at and where they need to get to. So Anthony will cover that afterwards. So 2 parts of our program. First part is base, like I just mentioned. The second part is an on-field assessment. For volleyball, it'll be an on-court assessment. This is specifically for baseball and softball that I'm just going to cover here tonight. But what we do is we actually do video assessments of every aspect of the game. So we're going to break down the catching, fielding, pitching, hitting for mechanics, really try to key up on fundamentals and improve the athlete's play through good, sound fundamentals on the field. Along with that, we're going to get a complete set of metrics. As Todd was mentioning, metrics have become so important in the sport, and athletes should really know where they are with their metrics at all times, making sure they're tracking them, making sure they're seeing them increase as they get older, and hopefully getting to the levels they need to be at to really attract some colleges or travel organizations, maybe even some professional teams as well. So that complete set of metrics is going to include, the hitting, pitching, fielding, and catching metrics that you would see at any type of Scout Day or showcase. We want to make this program extremely affordable for every family. So to get started with us, if you want to do the base only program, it's only $117. And that includes 2 months of development. So how this happens is you go through the base and then you get a bunch of corrective videos depending on, your assessment and the tests that you completed with base. After that, it's only $10 a month to continue on with that development. If you want to do a sport specific along with the base program, which would include the on-field assessment, the total would be $187 for the 2 assessments, plus 2 months of base development on the platform and 2 months of that sport specific development, the catching, fielding, hitting, pitching, and football, volleyball has their own development on that side as well. That would be $20 per month to continue on after that 2-month introductory cost. Lots of partnerships here. You see the Scout Hub. We just talked to the owner, Todd. We have a partnership with Diamond Kinetics, New England AAU Baseball, Compex, Axio, Triple Training, PowerFlex Cord, Clean Fuego. Clean Fuego is a ball that can show you your spin axis. Very good for seeing if your curveball has the right spin. If you're not getting around your fastball, it's a good training tool. And then we also have a partnership with Sports Thread, which I'll go over a little bit towards the end of my presentation. Looking at the profiles itself, so if you go to app.areascouts.com, anyone can fill out a free athlete profile, and you'll also be able to take a free nutrition and athletic mindset assessments that we have on there. So that's all free. So feel free to get your free profile set up in the system and take a look at what we have in there. Once you log in, you'll be able to customize your profile to you personally, photo of yourself, all different information. And then also you have the availability to ask to be evaluated. You can ask for training. The difference between evaluation and training: evaluations are our base assessment, our on-field assessment. Our training would be if you want to work specifically with your evaluator on, say, pitching or catching. Some of our evaluators do one-on-one lessons and have no problem doing that for you. Or if they don't specialize in what you need training in, they'll be able to contact you with somebody that can help you, somebody that they trust and they know in the industry that's very good at what they do. You can also ask a question or contact your evaluator directly. Everyone will be assigned an evaluator when they come on and get a profile with us. So as you go into the premium side of the platform, you're going to see, first of all, you can put in all your stats. So you can take your game changer stats that you have on all the different teams you played on for 5-6 years, if you have that much stats, and you can put it all in here. So it's all in one spot. You can see how you did year after year, how many hits you had one year versus the next, how your average was. It's a really good place to have that in one spot and be able to evaluate your level of play. Then we also have the metrics portion here, which you're going to have hitting, pitching, fielding metrics, also some base running metrics in there as well. This specific example is a hitting Rapsodo metric, where we have the max exit velocity, the total spin, the launch angle, the max distance off the bat, and then the spin axis of the ball as it's coming off the bat. So you can have a bunch of different metrics in here. Again, you're one stop that you can have all of this information on yourself that you can provide to colleges, high schools, travel organizations to really give them an idea of what kind of player you are. Next, we go into our benchmarks. Now, this is where the development comes in. When you do the base assessment, you're going to get benchmarks. In this example here, it's one of the simpler tests we do, which is a standing toe touch, but it really can give an idea of an athlete's mobility and flexibility. So in this case, the athlete only got a 2 out of 3 for the standing toe touch, and they were assigned a mobility and a motor control exercise. When they click on the view corrective, a video of Anthony Anzillo is going to pop up, taking you through an exercise or a stretch specific to what has been identified as a flag for you. So lots of stuff that you can learn from this. There is also a progression So if you do score a 1, you're going to get a completely different set of exercises than you would if you got a 2. So a good way. And there's many of these for each type of base test that we do. Next is the on-field assessment benchmarks. Now, this is going to be, like I said, for pitching, catching, fielding, hitting. There's a tremendous amount of objectives, as you can imagine, from a mechanical standpoint, biomechanics, and how people move and the fundamentals of the sport. We break everything down into very minute detail. So in this specific example, this is a leg lift for a pitcher. These are the objectives that we want to hit when we are doing our leg lift. And then these are the correctives that would be here if they did not hit all of those objectives. When they click on the video, they're going to get an explanation from our director of pitching, Josh Zide, who's going to go through and take you through a drill on, for this one, how not to have a toe dominant lift. So a lot of great information, a lot of great drills in here for what you're paying for our development. And lastly, Sports Thread. So Sports Thread is a national sports social media company. They promote athletes, and we have a partnership with them to have every one of our premium athletes have a Sports Thread profile where they can upload their academics, their videos, their stats, everything from Area Scouts that we've gathered. And they can have a really nice portfolio that can, through the Sports Thread platform, be sent out to any college coach in the country or anyone that you want to share your profile with. This is a really good tool for you to be able to share the great things that you've done in the sport. All right, that's the end of my presentation. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Anthony for a description of base.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. So my name is Anthony Anzillo. I'm a physical therapist and a strength and conditioning specialist. I created the base assessment, and I think it's really good that you're able to see tonight's presentation, because you get to see a whole continuation of all the different types of assessments that are available to the athletes. So you saw with Todd's discussion, he's looking at on-field, what his training is breaking down player performance on the field during a game, which is one, the far end of this spectrum of athletic performance. What we're looking at with the on-field assessments are somewhere in the middle, in a controlled setting, looking at glove to glove times, throwing velocity, hitting velocity, all those things. And then with the base assessment, we're all the way at the beginning stages of movement and breaking down the most fundamental foundational things. So throughout the base assessment, we're just looking at the athlete's baseline physical foundation. So their amount of joint mobility, muscle flexibility, their strength, their movement patterns, their endurance, things like that really are necessary to create a good athlete. So, just because someone scores well on a base assessment doesn't mean they're automatically going to be able to hit a home run. You need timing, hand-eye coordination, all things like that go beyond what we look at in the base assessment. But, if an athlete is stiff or weak and doesn't have good movement patterns, I can guarantee that they are not going to be very successful on the field. So this stuff is essential to building a good athlete. It's just the baseline and the foundation. And the better the movement skills, the strength, the mobility, the coordination of the athlete, then those things will lead to much higher chances of success on the field and being able to stay healthy. So with the base assessment, we have it broken down into 4 sections. You see here: biomechanics, athleticism, sequence, and endurance. In the biomechanics section, what we're looking at are fundamental movement patterns that really all humans should be able to perform fairly well. They're simple, but they give us a lot of information. So you saw the toe touch example. So when we do a standing toe touch, the most obvious thing that an athlete needs to have to be able to touch their toes is hamstring flexibility, but it also requires good hip mobility, good mobility in the spine throughout all the joints of the spine, and then the motor control of the nervous system to be able to control and put all those pieces together. So it's that way for 7 different movements within the biomechanics section. And if an athlete doesn't score a 3 or score well on one of the tests, it identifies a weak link in the chain, basically, of an area of stiffness or poor motor control that's affecting that specific movement pattern. And then, as you heard from Brian, based on the score that they receive on that test, the athlete is then prescribed specific corrective exercises to target their limitation so that they are able to address that issue and clean up that movement pattern. So that's really important for a lot of these movements. We can take a look just in the biomechanics section. We get an idea of someone's ankle mobility in their ankles, their hips, their shoulders, pretty much every area of the body, that if we identify stiffness or poor control of those areas, then that sets them up for either poor performance or an increased risk of injury. So that's the biomechanics section. Next, we move into the athleticism section, and there things get a little bit more physically demanding. We're looking at various strength tests of strength and power of both the upper body and lower body, and then comparing left to right performance to identify any asymmetries, because asymmetries throughout the body are another risk factor for injury. So in addition to strength and power in this athleticism section, we're also looking at several tests of speed and agility. And then all these tests, we're able to compare the athlete's performance with published norms that we would expect for specific ages, genders, and types of athletes, depending on which sport they play. And again, we provide corrective exercises to address anything that they are below those expected standards on. And next, we move into the sequence section. And when we talk about sequence, what we're referring to is kinematic sequence of movement. And that's basically how efficiently an athlete is able to transfer power from their legs through their core to their arms, which is really important for all athletes, but it's most recognizable in rotational athletes such as pitchers and hitters and golfers. Most of the good ones, they develop that bat speed and club head speed and throwing speed by first generating the power in their legs, and then it's transferred through their core and then to their arms in a very sophisticated sequence that's very predictable. So we have a series of tests that allows us to estimate their kinematic sequence, and then again compare their results to expected performance and provide them with corrective exercises to help train that movement pattern. And then finally, we move into the endurance section. And in endurance, we're looking at both cardiorespiratory endurance as well as endurance of their core muscles. So endurance is important because fatigue is another risk factor for both poor performance and for elevated injury risk. So the more resistant an athlete is to fatigue, the better their performance is and the lower their risk of injury is, especially as you get toward the end of a game or season or event, when they otherwise would be breaking down or slowing down or just getting tired and affecting their movement patterns. So those are the real importances of looking at their endurance. And then again, we provide targeted corrective exercises to address any of those things. We have evaluators all over the country that go through a very detailed training program and then submit videos of themselves performing the entire base assessment on multiple athletes and receiving feedback from me directly on what they're doing well, what they need to improve a little bit, so that we can assure that all evaluators throughout the country are performing the assessment and grading it and administering it the exact same way. So that process is really important to ensure that every athlete, regardless of which evaluator you are assigned to or is in your area, you're going to get the base assessment and the proper correctives, exactly as they were intended.
Thank you, Anthony.
Sure.
So I'm going to hit some of these questions. So which sports do you plan on having on the platform in the future? So I can answer that. So currently right now, baseball, softball, football, volleyball. We're in the process of launching rugby, lacrosse, and hockey. We're not going to offer those until we do get them 100% completed on the platform, but we're in the process of doing those 3 right now. The other sports are all up and running in the future. Soccer, golf, pretty much we're going by kind of the demand that we're getting from athletes and evaluators that want to come on board and organizations that want to partner with us. Basically, the more demand we get, we then go out and get the best team possible to build that side of the platform and then launch those sports. So that's kind of the progress moving forward. We don't have any set dates for set sports, but we kind of launch them, like I said, as we get the demand and then as we build the team and get that completed. How does the base assessment vary from sport to sport? I'll let you answer that one, Anthony.
Sure. So the base assessment, it's the same assessment is administered to all athletes regardless of their sport. The only difference between sports is the part of it in the athleticism section is a sprint. So we just change the distance of the sprint based on whatever the standard is for that sport. You know, a 60-yard dash for baseball, a 40-yard dash for football, and so on, based on the various sports. But really, these movement patterns, they're applicable to all athletes, regardless of which sport they play. And then specific to each sport, that differentiation comes in the next step of the assessment, which is the on-field assessment.
Caleb, what is your typical protocol when you find athletes that have issues getting through the movement assessment? I can answer that one too, but actually you could probably both answer that one. Anthony?
Sorry, could you repeat that one? I apologize.
What's the typical protocol when you find athletes that are having issues getting through the movement assessment? So I'm assuming finding pain or maybe you can't do the certain aspects of the assessment.
Right. So I'll address the pain one first. So if any athlete reports pain throughout the biomechanics section, that's one thing we screen for in all those movements is pain. If they have pain with a certain movement, we have a protocol for which subsequent tests within the base assessment will have them skip. So if they have pain when we're checking out their shoulder mobility, just from reaching behind their back or doing a simple movement like that, we're going to avoid performing tests throughout the assessment that place more stress and demand on their shoulder, just so we can be safe and avoid making whatever is bothering them worse. And then we follow that up with a recommendation for them to visit with a medical professional in their area, a physician or a physical therapist, to have that issue looked at. So we definitely don't advocate playing through pain, and pain is a warning sign coming from the body that something isn't quite right. So it's really important to have those things addressed to not make anything worse and to fix the issue. As far as, let's see, was that all of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you currently work with tournaments, showcases, and do a lot of them do these movement assessments with their athletes? Brian, you can answer that.
We do have some partnerships with tournament providers, not so much showcases at this point. A lot of what we do on the on-field assessment is very similar to a showcase. You're getting your metrics and everything, just like you would at a showcase. But we do have plans within the next year to move into that part of the industry with our base assessment to assist these showcase companies with getting some, health information with the athletes as well, and showing them where they are from an athleticism standpoint, not just performance.
Sorry, I just remembered the second part of that question. If somebody has difficulty through in one of the tests or throughout part of the assessment. So, if they can't perform something, they would just receive a 0 on that test, and they would receive corrective exercises to help them build that up. But, there's, aside from just getting a 0, there's no real failing of the test. For the time test, especially, we would just record whatever time that they're able to complete the test in, even if it's, a minute. And then, anything that's outside of expected performance, then they'll receive corrective exercises to start working on that.
How do we get involved with doing athlete scouring reports once you have finished building the program with Todd Blyleven? So that, like I said, that'll be something that we're probably going to offer in October. So the best thing is to, reach out to us at contact at Area Scouts and let us just get your name, and then we can reach back out to you if you want to come on board as a scout or as an evaluator, and then you'll be able to do that then, but you won't be able to do that on the report side until October for sure. Do you currently have any data that shows the improvement of athletes on the field in relation to doing your movement assessments? So
Not yet.
yeah. So I'm going to touch on, I know Brian has had some success with some of the athletes he's had just in improving their movement overall, which obviously there's a direct correlation there to their performance on the field. If they're moving better, they're performing better. But also we have about, I think, 10 or 12 camps in the progress of being built right now and coming up here in the next 8 weeks. And a lot of those athletes coming on the platform and going through the base assessment, and then obviously going back out on the field, we're going to have a lot more data. We've only been doing this for a year up till right now. So it is still, that is our goal down the road, to be able to compile, thousands and thousands of assessments and be able to see the correlation between what we're doing and how those athletes are not only performing better, but our goal here is to give them the best chance to stay on the field. And it doesn't matter how good of an athlete they are if they're not healthy enough to be on the field. It doesn't matter. So, Brian, I'll let you touch on. I know people have asked a similar question about some of the athletes that you've had that, you thought just by seeing them would be phenomenal and weren't, and doing the movement assessment has helped them.
Yeah. So I've had a couple different situations that, I wouldn't say surprised me, but it was eye-opening. That, you have some athletes that walk in the door that, they look like exceptional athletes from a physical standpoint. They're muscular. They look like they're, top of their class in the athlete. And you put them through some of these tests, and you can see that they're just not moving correctly, though. And that can be, a recipe for, potential injuries down the road. Having a very strong muscular frame, but not having the proper body movements, you're putting your body under stress. So I have seen that happen, where I was very shocked to see some of the athletes that I've worked with not perform as well as I thought they would on the base assessment, just by first glance at them. And then I've had, athletes where we've done some of the biomechanics portion, and, immediately I could tell that there was something not correct about the movement. One athlete actually didn't have any pain, but his range of motion before his shoulder was so poor that I actually got Anthony involved. The kid was a pitcher and he played catcher. One of the two of the most demanding positions on the baseball diamond for shoulder movement and throwing. And we were able to change his shoulder score from a 1 to a 3 in a month and a half using the corrective exercises that Anthony has done, which I was amazed by, and also the father was absolutely of this player was absolutely elated by the improvement that he saw, because I had him there when we retested and we showed the differences, and he was just he was in awe of what had transpired in just a month and a half.
Do you only do events, or are there physical locations that we can go to get an assessment? So the events are one thing. And then secondly, if your son or daughter goes on the platform and signs up, they will be assigned to a local evaluator who will reach out to your son or daughter, and you'll be able to schedule an assessment. And those assessments can be done either outside or on a field or at a facility. My goal is as quickly as possible to be able to have, we already have probably about 20 facilities that we're associated with that you can go there and get an assessment done. But my goal is to, have these located all over the country and all over the world, that there will be evaluators in facilities or facility owners that are part of the Area Scouts network, that yes, you'll be able to go to some of these local places and have an assessment done anytime that you want to have one done. So, but currently, again, we're a year into this, and we do have a lot of association to facilities around the country already, but not to where chances are there's not one right in your backyard yet. But that is the goal eventually. So I'm going to end this here. We're right about just at that hour mark. Brian, Anthony, if you have anything to add. Brian, maybe if you could give the information one more time. I know we always forget to do this at the end, kind of give the email, the URLs for the website, how to get on there and look at the events and sign up for an event and so forth.
Yeah, so any questions you can email either myself, Brian, BRYAN at areascouts.com, or contact@areascouts.com. Either one of those will work. If you want to go in and look at the events we have set up, you can go to www.areascouts.com, and on the front, on the top bar, you'll see the events tab. Just click on the events tab. It'll take you to our events page, and you can sign up for any event there that's in your local area. If you do want to set up a free profile, it is app.areascouts.com, and you can go in and sign up for a free profile in there and contact an evaluator. An evaluator will contact you within a couple of days of you signing up anyways, to ask if there's anything that we can do to help.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lance. Have a great week.
Have a good night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight.